Hi guys, in 2025 I read 27 books and I decided to make a top 10 out of them. This list turned out to be quite diverse. Classics, translated literature, non-fictions, autobiography, horror, satire, and science fiction. Let's go! 100 Years of Solitude. I spent 2 months reading this book and I enjoyed every bit of it. After that, I watched the Netflix series, which was also great, filmed in Colombia with Spanish-speaking actors. Absolutely amazing. 100 Years of Solitude feels like a celebration, where magic intervenes with the everyday concerns of the Buendia family. The Colombian town of Macondo, lost somewhere between the jungle and the edge of the world, becomes a metaphor for an entire country and several generations. Here, ghosts live among the living. A telescope allows one to glimpse another world, and yellow flowers rain down from the sky.
Flashback.
Northanger Abbey. Yeah, this is the book.
End of flashback.
The funniest book on this list. Catherine Morland is 17, naive, inexperienced in love, and unable to recognize manipulation, but utterly devoted to Gothic novels. Fate brings her together with two gentlemen, or perhaps one of them is no gentleman at all. That is for her to discover. Jane Austen laughs at everything and everyone with such ease and lightness that you will find yourself laughing along with her. The word for world is forest. I hadn't read any of her books before, so this was my first encounter with Ursula Le Guin, and I instantly fell in love. Right now, I'm reading her Earthsea series, and it mesmerized me from the very first pages. The word for world is forest is a short novella that brings a storm of emotions. It is unsettling from the very first lines, frightening yet impossible to put down. Let me read the beginning of chapter 1. 2 pieces of yesterday were in Captain Davidson's mind when he woke, and he lay looking at dim in darkness for a while. One up, the new shipload of women had arrived. Believe it or not, they were here in Centreville, 27 light years away from Earth by NFAL and 4 hours from Smith Camp by Hopper. The second batch of breeding females for the new Tahiti colony, all sound and clean, 212 head of prime human stock, or prime enough, anyhow. Orlando. I am a huge fan of Virginia Woolf, and last year I read one of her funniest books, Orlando. Who is Orlando? Who is Orlando? This novel is about freedom. The freedom to move through time and change gender, to create and to love. It is not a biography at all, it is a love letter. Sincere and hilarious. I laughed out loud while reading it. Sarcastic and feminist, the story spins wildly from the era of Queen Elizabeth I onward until the whirlwind can no longer be stopped, and you won't want it to stop. Dance and read this magnificent novel. I even envy you a little.
No doubt about his sex, despite the feminine appearance that every young man of the time aspires to. But when he, that is, I, came into the world, he was looking for something else.
War with the Newts. If Orlando by Virginia Woolf is bright, playful sarcasm, then War with the Newts is biting satire and pure farce, a social and political assault. Written in 1936 in Czechoslovakia, at a time when Nazism was already rising in Germany, the novel feels disturbingly prophetic. At first, the book can be difficult to read, as its form constantly shifts from newspaper articles to political speeches. But be patient, the newts will appear, and you will end up thinking a lot about humanity and yourself. Mo Yan, Frogs. In 2025, I read 3 novels by Chinese author Mo Yan, who won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2012. I read Red Sorghum, The Republic of Wine, and frogs. All of these books are great, but I chose Frogs because it's easier to read than the others, even though it's still brutal in places. Reproductive rights have always been a battleground across different times and cultures. Abortions, bans, restrictions. Here, the pendulum swings to the opposite extreme. The state asks people to have fewer children. Just one. You've probably heard of one-child policy. What comes of this and who bears the responsibility, who makes a deal with the devil and who with the state, can be discovered by reading this book, or perhaps by listening closely to the croaking of frogs. Skugga Baldur, the shortest book on this list. Sion creates a mosaic about what it means to be human. The answer can be sought in the snow-covered landscapes of Iceland, in the past, in the forest, or in the eyes of a strange creature named Skuggabaldur. The opening pages feel wintry and cold, as if written for the new year. But don't rush to conclusions. There will be several twists, and in the end, everything falls into place. The life of Liliana Lungina, told by herself in Alec Dorman's film. When I was a child, I loved the book about Carlsen by Astrid Lindgren. Last year, I read a book about the translator of the story into Russian, Liliana Lungina. She had an extraordinary life, lived in different countries, and she speaks about her life in this book. Through the lens of Liliana Lungina's life, we see not only the USSR and the Red Terror, but also the fates of countless people, their heroism and betrayals. Lungina speaks about her life lightly and vividly, while somewhere in the background, the rustle of denunciation can be heard. Yet, the twists of fate never break her. Every sentence is infused with humor and warmth. A deeply life-affirming book. The Brothers Karamazov. One family, 3 brothers, or are they actually 4? And a model of all humanity. Dostoevsky's final novel astonishes with its depth and scale. It is impossible to describe it in a single sentence. I can't do it. This is something you have to read. Svetlana Tyulbasheva, The Forest. I never thought of myself as a horror fan until I encountered this book. At first, everything seemed simple and clear, but I could not imagine what awaited me at the end. After finishing it, I returned to the story for several days. In fact, even now, I sometimes recall the plot and its characters, and it still sends a chill down my spine. That's all for today. This was my list for the best books I read in 2025. You can find my TBR for 2026 in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Bye!